Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today on circular economy. My name is Namrata, and I'm the co-founder of Shift Eco, your one-stop shop for eco-friendly products. And I'm here today with two amazing women whom I've had the opportunity to interact with multiple times in the past. I have Helena and Jen here with me today, and I'll leave it to both of you to introduce yourselves. Whoever, in whichever order you'd like to start.
Jen, go ahead.
So my name is Jennifer Salt, and I am the founder and chief cheerleader, as it is, of Thrift for Good. And we are a volunteer-run charity thrift shop on the Palm Jumeirah, as well as an online store, thriftforgood.org. We rehome pre-loved items to reduce waste and raise money for children around the world in partnership with Gulf for Good, which is a local nonprofit.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Jen.
So I'm Elena, and I'm a founder of Green Footprint. So I worked for many years with corporates shaping strategies for growth. And since 2017, I started working with sustainability strategies and started thinking about myself as eco-friendly person, which doesn't mean that anything changed then about the way we live, but I think this eco-friendly started to be more and more present, and we started hearing more and more about it. I think the Paris Agreement that took place in 2015 probably started urging the issues that we are facing today about the climate change and so on. So I just want to give a quick kind of hint on how the green footprint came to scene. In fact, it was actually a need as a consumer, actually, when I moved to the UAE, because I wanted to make my households more green, more sustainable. I hated dealing with so much waste in the house, and wanted to do switches and optimize resources as well. But I found it quite difficult to do these switches. Every time you kind of need to search for the options and spend hours probably on social media, because this is probably the strongest channel now that works if people wants to kind of move forwards and change a little bit the way they are living, because the infrastructure is still shaping. So this is how the green footprint actually started, just to provide everything in one place to people to find the options on saving sources, which effectively works on their budgets as well, which we agree the UAE it's quite expensive place to live. So every time we optimize resources, it has a positive effect on our disposable income as well. And this is where we started encouraging also people to find the inspiration and the ideas to start living new luxury, which is eco living. I would say I'm always excited when I get a new product, eco product, how beautiful it is without all this wrapping and like shiny paper and everything. So yes, this is how green footprint continue acting on collecting information and spreading information about the places, products, services in the UAE, and covering basically everything what is linked in our living. So
Great. No, thanks for that, Helena. And I think it's really encouraging to see the number of organizations and people that are trying to talk more about green living and kind of trying to make these shifts in their daily lifestyle. So thank you for that introduction and for the work Green Footprint does. We're all here today to talk about circular economy. And a lot of us here have heard of circular economy, and we understand how it's better, but I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth, the people working in sustainability. What is the circular economy for both of you?
I would like just to jump in, and I'm curious to see, because we have here the participants, and it would be interesting to ask them if they can type quickly and tell us what comes to their mind when it comes to circular economy. If they can just type the first word that comes up to, I guess you can probably track some of results and see the answers.
Yeah, everyone will be able to see. Just put it in chat, everyone. Just put in the first word that comes to your mind for circular economy.
So it would be interesting to see what the people are recycling,
reuse, closing the consumption loop and not going to waste. That's lovely.
Yeah, which Donut, okay.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah, theoretically, yeah.
Absolutely. Zero waste.
Perfect, yeah. Mindful consumer purchasing consumption. Yes, this is all climate change. Exactly. Like all correct answers and good association. I think the circular economy is quite exciting topic and so large and evolving as we speak. There are so many movements in the world and so many initiatives, many startups, and regulations that are coming in place when it comes to circular economy. But the question is like, why does it matter? Why do we speak today about it? We actually reached the point where our living is not really sustainable. So we are really the business as usual, living as usual. It's no more the way forward. So even speaking about the word sustainable, I feel it's not even positive. So I'll give you one very interesting example that I heard. If someone tells you that their marriage or relationship is sustainable, like doesn't sound very positively, right? So actually the word sustainable and where we are today is actually we are the urging points, and we have to kind of fix the situation where we are. We are reaching almost 8 billion in population. We are wasting 30% of the food consumed, and we are exhausting natural systems and sources and polluting our air. We are not seeing all of this, and it's not quite on, like in front of us, because the trucks are coming and picking up our waste and taking it away from us. And we are actually having a feeling that we are living on the nice scene, and then we are not checking what's happening behind the curtains. But what's important to understand is the nature is so smart, it's so well connected. It's like what comes into nature is well connected. So if we dump the waste in the landfill, it will certainly come back to us through the polluted air, water, or our food that grows from the soil, right? The message is quite clear. Like we need to change to drive systemic changes, and the circular economy is giving us tools to tackle climate change, biodiversity loss that we are facing today, and also address a number of social needs that we have today. So it's important to understand the circular economy is what we saw here, all these words, but that it lies on 3 pillars: to eliminate waste, keep material in use, and to regenerate the natural systems. So it's completely opposite from the linear model that we kept living in and using, which is take, make, dispose. Now we're checking how we can restore, regenerate the system as such. Excuse me. So and so the first thing that obviously we need to think of is like how we can eliminate the waste, because the waste in the nature doesn't exist. Like everything is food for something, right? So we need to think on how can we use the products that we can reuse, repair, remanufacture, so to keep circulating the materials. And I'll just give you one example. When we started composting at home, when basically we were doing different techniques, right? So the technique we started with composting is basically to bury our compost after the stage 1, and then soon after we started getting like spruce growing. We got some tomatoes, some pumpkin and cucumbers, and like you give to the nature, nature gives you back. So this is the concept, right? That we have. So it's and the topic is quite interesting. It's so large. So yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Helena. Anything you want to add, Jen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with everything Eleni's saying. I also want to touch on the lovely point from Rasna, reuse the objects as raw materials for new products. So I find circular economy so exciting because it's turning what we currently have on its head. As Elena was saying, we're linear. We're producing, fast fashion, fast food, fast everything, and it's going straight into the waste. These plastic bags we use for 10 seconds, as an example. So circular economy, it's great because it takes our individual actions, corporate actions, and also governmental actions to rewrite the whole system, the whole structure. And as a change taken comprehensively, it would completely change the way we live, the way we interact with this planet. I know one example that I found online that I really enjoyed was also finding not only how to extend the life of products by reusing, recreating, or just building quality and having that last for as long as possible. It's also a community effort of a way to share resources. So for example, do we all need to own our own individual power drills, or is there a way we can reorganize what we're doing to be able to share tools, to be able to share things that can then last longer and less be in production than already is?
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think today we have both of you here, and what we want to really delve is look at circular economy from an organization perspective, and then also from a consumer perspective, so that our audience can understand how we as consumers can drive this shift from a linear approach to a circular approach as well. So let's start with the organizational perspective with you, Helena, since you work with so many organizations already. So how do you think, in your experience with working with different companies, how are companies adopting this closed loop approach in manufacturing and production?
Well, when we are speaking about closing the loop, it's obviously it's a new world concept. Actually, it's like adopting what was before, going kind of backwards, right? In order to go forward. So today, as the companies are paying more and more attention on preserving the resources, which obviously has a positive impact on their top and bottom line, because as much as they preserve the resources and optimize the expenses, right, they would also work positively on their image and attract new markets. But what is important to understand is that the circular design and product development are playing a quite important role today. There is all a huge like a market they're waiting for an economic growth that circular economy can bring for the businesses, for consumers, for countries. A lot of interest and potential is there. I'll give just one example, like 80% of plastics and fashion, which Jen can confirm, produced is like destined to go to landfill, which is huge resource loss. So by fixing this issue in design, we would kind of solve the problem of waste that we are facing today, what we are seeing. I mean, if you would come home and see the flood that like you would not go and clean the water straight away. You will switch off, you know, the water supply. So this is where we emphasize a lot importance on circular design, you know, going back a step back and creating this circular design. We had a couple of companies that they wanted to make a difference and say, oh, we are actually more sustainable. We are now producing water in different packaging, not the plastic one. But there was no like a way to recycle or dispose this new packaging, right? Which means like, you know, you create an entire new product, you invested so many sources, resources in it, but the picture, I mean, the decision is not well. So it's quite important that the companies are very thorough in this design stage, so that they think long term, and then the circular design, we have to kind of really leverage on all this new technology and new material in order to, you know, create a resilient future, which circularity gives us as an opportunity. So the good news is when we speak about good design, we are speaking about eco-friendly product, durable product, and innovative product, which, you know, we are already on the good track. So it's quite important to look at the upstream innovation rather than downstream. But when the infrastructure is not there, you have to look at an entire, like all options, right? So what we do, the green footprint, is like we are trying to understand where the waste is not necessary, such as packaging, and then just eliminate the packaging, or where the packaging is needed to look at where the innovation could take place and guide the organizations in doing this switch. And so we're also identifying and working with a lot of organizations and companies in driving the product development, but also like doing even small improvements, you know, like being, you know, optimizing the resources. This is the first step. So there is a lot to be done with the governance, with the collaboration, with it. But again, in order to work, we have to put stakeholders together. So this is the key. Smart partnership is a key for the circular economy.
Right. So you work with a lot of companies, you work with the government on different approaches in circular economy, whether that means, you know, saving material costs, or whether that means finding a smarter way to manage waste. What, according to you, would be the best example of an organization, or even as a country, that has implemented circular approach?
Well, if you look the world today, like we would see that there are so many like you know, efforts from different cities, different countries, from so many startups. So if we look at the overall picture and like who would be the most advanced, right? I mean, the European Union is doing so many things, and on the regulation, as regulations are putting in place and driving top-down approach, which is quite ahead of the other countries. But this doesn't mean that the other countries are not following. If we are looking at the UAE, where the image of the UAE, I mean, whenever I would attend some international panel in discussion, the question would be, oh, you're based in the UAE, so the consumer is the EU. How they are sustainable? And you know, it's the image is not quite good. But actually, Green Footprint was there to prove that there are many things happening in the UAE. There is the conscious consumer demand a great products and supply, like you guys, like Shiteko, like Tricks for Good. So it's like there are so many good things happening in the market, and great examples that you are seeing that are kind of matching the concept of circular economy. But if we look really the great examples, we would see in Europe, a lot of initiatives on smart cities, what people are doing, car sharing, carpooling, bicycle sharing, and so on. Amsterdam is one of the cities that are having a lot of apps, sharing apps from about everything. Even if you need a tool to just hang the picture on the wall, you would not go and buy this tool, you would just go and borrow, share, right? And it has a perfect sense. I remember like I was really greatly surprised a couple of years back when I saw it. They have a system of borrowing the baby clothes. So basically you choose the age of the baby, you get a package, and you have everything it needs, because the kids are growing so fast that basically you don't even manage to wear the clothes, and it's such a huge industry, such a huge ways. So it's very inspiring. A lot of things are happening. On the other side, like Sweden and Nordic countries are super good in optimizing the resources. Swedish has a return system in the supermarkets, which is really quite exemplary. We have a lot of zero waste shops popping up all over the world, which we don't have still here in the UAE. On the other side, speaking about the countries, we have to also speak about companies, because the companies are the one to provide the options to consumer, and the companies are the one that have this power of actually changing the word. The mindset is the first step to change, but then then you have to have some supply, right? So there are great companies in the world. We have one of these. It's like also available. It's Lush. Lush had over 60% of their range naked. So the bars and so on. So Lush is doing quite well, like in terms of circular economy. It's there for a long time now. We have, for instance, manufacturing example of Renault, car producer, that it's actually that found a system how to remanufacture the parts. So they're getting them all parts and then reassembling it into new cars and so on, which is again a great and revolutionary model. It's quite interesting to see sometimes, like the companies such as Coca-Cola or Nestle, that are global huge companies, are doing a great changes in terms of like changing the packages of Smarties into like a paper one, which is great, like because the leak out of these packages all over the place is making a mess, and they're the first one really to fix this. So we are not talking what's inside, right? Whether it's Coca-Cola is good or bad for health. There is this health issue as well. But again, the company as such is doing the efforts to change and implement a circular model, which is quite important. But us as a consumer, we have to understand and change mindset in terms of having accessibility over ownership. So it's rather having products accessible than owning them, and this is this sharing mindset, which is quite difficult to change. Me as a consumer, I'm quite there for a lot of things positively, but some things, you really have to work on the mind shift and accept it and fix it.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. There is a mind shift, and the way you think has to kind of evolve. So in terms of companies which are used to, like large companies, used to traditional ways of manufacturing and producing, how open or how resistant are companies to change their approach in the way they design their products, in the way they make products? How open are companies to shift to this new paradigm?
I think that companies are getting more and more there, and obviously everything depends on the leadership, like who is the leader there. But I think we are seeing now a lot of positive changes, like everywhere. Like all big players are now introducing like the product range. With if you go to supermarkets and you want to search for even toothbrush, you will now find in the supermarket in the regular range some of the, like products that are more eco than the previous ones. So they are quickly adapting to the demand. And obviously we see a lot of like changes in terms of the governance, organizational governance, and we are seeing more and more like sustainability officers in the company, which which shows that we are on track, and
Right.
obviously having a global organization such as UN and the countries itself, like in setting up the global agendas towards addressing the climate change issues and so on, is actually forcing the companies as well to rethink. What's interesting is to see the many startups and small and medium companies that are actually leading this change. And this is where we as a consumer have to understand, like we have the small and medium companies that are kind of innovating and driving the trends, and we should not forget this once the big companies kick in with like all the supply and so on, and the options. So I think we have to kind of develop really this new mindset of consuming less and reusing, and then choosing like local wherever we can, especially when it comes to food. We have a lot of local farms here in the UAE, and again, thinking about consuming local and supplying local also brings resilience. Like whenever there are crises like what we had with the pandemics, like the systems that are producing locally, like are more agile than the ones where we look at the globalization. So I think the view and the shift is quite moving from globally to locally, right? So
I completely agree. I think whereas companies are giving us access to products, we as consumers are using those products. So we are kind of driving these companies to kind of make products the way we want. So I want to move over to the consumer perspective, and I'd like your input on that, Jen. As consumers, how are we contributing to the waste problem?
Well, I think, again, it comes from that whole paradigm shift. I think our society is a bit broken in terms of how we treat our possessions, our things. To produce and consume the cheapest option possible, whatever it's wrapped in, and then throw it at the end of the day. I think everybody that's watching this is here for a reason that we want that to change. And it's a slow movement. Not everyone has bought into it yet because a lot of people just don't know. And I think it's so much easier to go for the cheaper option. It's so much easier to go for the plastic, to go for the fast, the immoral, the unethical. So, sorry, I know I'm going in a loop answering this. It's all the small decisions we make. And as you were both saying, as consumers, it's the small changes we make that drive different changes in demand, that get companies and governments and that to respond, to be able to change the way things are. If we had a walkout on plastic, for example, it would take a lot, but finally that wouldn't be produced anymore. So yeah, it's just the individual choices of refusing the things that you don't want. We'll get into that later, I think, in this discussion, but no, the system's broken as consumers, and sometimes it's easier and cheaper. It's people to the option.
It's interesting you talk about the price point, and we'll get that to it in a second. But what, according to you, are like the most polluting industries currently?
Yeah. So there's three I'd like to touch on very briefly. The ones that are the most carbon emission based bad businesses, as it were. So energy fuel, I think, is the number one carbon emitter. Obviously, our lights, our phone charging, our gas in our cars, our everything like that, it's very detrimental to the environment to pull that from the ground and do that.
Yeah.
I think obviously switching to greener sources of energy that actually work could be a solution. And also just being mindful that, crude oil goes into the production of so many things that we use on a day-to-day basis, our phones, those plastic bags that I'm really harping on today. And all of those come from crude oil as well. So that's the number one, and that's a bigger change that we need to see. Second, of course, is agriculture. So it's 20% of carbon emissions at this point, and mostly I would say it's through feeding livestock, feeding animals, so that we can, so I think the actions we can take specifically against that is cutting down on our meat consumption to make that a bit more sustainable in terms of what, we talk about 8 billion people on this planet. I think if we were all to switch to a more vegetarian, vegan-based diet, then we would be able to more sustainably feed the people on this planet. Yeah. And the third, which is the one that touches directly on what I'm doing, is fashion. That's the third biggest pollutant. People don't often see it though, but it is, 10% of our greenhouse gases, the amount of water and energy that goes into growing cotton, the crude oil again for the polyesters, the plastics, all of this. And fashion, in addition to the resources it takes to produce those clothing, which is significant, it's also, I think 1/3 of the world's oceans microplastic comes from our fashion as it gets leached in our washing machines. And I think only 13% of clothing is recycled at this stage. And that means most of it ends up in landfills in the ocean, and very little of it is upcycled or processed well. And of course, the fashion industry, I think, is the most broken of all, because so many employees are, essentially, it's a new slave labor system. They're paid next to nothing to work in very horrible conditions, to produce clothing at an alarming rate, which people buy very cheaply, use a couple of times, and then throw out. And it's heartbreaking, that system. So yeah, I think that's another one.
No, I think these are very pertinent points, especially the fashion industry, which of course you're solving for. But when we are consumers, we are driven by price points. Not everyone has the luxury to go beyond a certain price. So how do we balance a cheap object, which we can currently afford on our salary, because these are legitimate concerns that a lot of people have, versus a more sustainable alternative, which could be more expensive? So how do we bridge that gap, and how do we make this circular approach work for the masses?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. So in my mind, the circular economy works well with 2 levels to it: buying new, that is sustainable, produced well, fair wages, quality that's made to last. And the second tier, if you can't afford that, is secondhand. And obviously, so Thrift for Good is an example. We sell secondhand clothing, accessories, bags, shoes, and it's affordable. It should be affordable. So for less than H&M, Forever 21, and the other fast fashion people out there, you can buy perfect quality, unique clothing. And I think secondhand is that. And I like your point, Yelena, about switching from ownership to accessibility. You don't have to compromise. A lot of times people tell me, like, oh, I'd love sustainable, but having the same wardrobe in my closet for 20 years doesn't appeal to me. No problem. You should be able to switch out what you're doing, be able to shop guilt-free, but it's having that in the market available. So thrifting, we're bringing thrift to life. And of course, Green Footprint is offering an awesome list of places where you can find thrift stores. I just also want to touch, Veronica put a really good question in the chat. Is it okay if I touch on that briefly now?
Absolutely.
So she asked a very good point. It's not necessarily about being vegan, but just having less meat, which I agree with. It's your personal choice. And if we all cut back, it would make a big impact. I like your question about eco-sustainable labels trending now in stores. Seems to be a marketing trick. We all have to be careful of greenwashing.
Yeah.
Seafood, I think, is a perfect example. What was that documentary? It was brilliant. You guys might have to help me out here. But essentially, the sustainable fishing.
Seafood.
The labels that are on cans that say this is sustainably fished, it doesn't exist.
Seaspiracy, right? Seaspiracy.
Yeah, thank you. Mind blank. So everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. There is no magical cure. There is no magical solution. And ultimately, moderation, cutting back. Moderation and cutting back, I think, is the answer, more than blindly trusting companies who want to sell products. That is the most positive answer. But
Right. But just latching onto that question a little bit more, there is a lot of greenwashing out there. And as consumers, sure, we should buy green ethical brands, but there are a lot of organizations that slap on the green label to make their brands look more sustainable, whereas they may not be so. And then they try to charge a higher price point. How do we as consumers stay wary of these brands? And I think I'll limit the question more to fashion because we're talking more about fast fashion right now. So if I'm looking at a sustainable fashion brand, how do I as a consumer judge that they're truly sustainable?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I know for myself in my own zero waste journey, just as a general answer to this, I like to pick one product per week, per 2 weeks, whatever I have time for, do research on it. And then once I found that product I like, I stick with it. So Shift Eco is an excellent platform, for example, because you can make the change to trusted products one at a time. And I do think it is tiring, which I think is another burden to going towards zero waste and sustainable choices. But it is worth making those shifts one by one. And with
Right.
fashion, it's the same thing. So secondhand is an easy choice because obviously prolonging the life of what already exists is a green option. If you wanted to buy firsthand quality, sustainable, I think the questions you need to ask yourself, the humanitarian point of view, where is this being made? Are people being paid fair wages? And then also, of course, the environmental perspective. Some people still want to wear polyesters. There's benefits to that. It's your choice. But how much has gone into this? Is it organic? Clothing, fashion, it's also the leading source of pesticide use in the world. So, which also has environmental impacts. So just asking the questions that matter to you when you make your choice.
I just want to jump in. There are a couple of companies. I mean, there are a lot of things happening, right? But there are a couple of companies that they're providing now to consumer a chance that they bring in their products, and then they repair and get it back, right? There are some companies giving the option to return some products and get some discount, right? So they recycle and they keep the products in use, the thing is, what's difficult again is just to find this information, right? Sometimes you come across some article or you read it, so you click, oh, this brand does a lot and it has like a sense what they do. So you start kind of. I mean, there are a couple of brands that are perfect. I mean, their design probably it's not matching perfectly, but if you have a chance to choose, two same products and that one brand is doing more than the other, you would obviously opt for that. But this is where we also try to kind of bring this information together, collaborate with experts in different fields, such as Jen, so to publish different articles, different information, to kind of shed a light on the good practices. And this is what matters, and this is where we kind of start being educated in order to take a good decisions and to judge actually what's happening around. Without knowing, we cannot be aware and we cannot really start doing changes.
Right. We also have a really great question. I'm sorry for mixing it up, but again, when we come about an individual perspective with circular economy, Sandeep has sent in this question. A lot of people say that we're all talking about circular economy, but there's no real action. There may be a bunch of us that are really interested in making real change, but how could the government or legislation introduce an incentive or any other approach to kind of inculcate this culture of a circular economy in consumers? Because we've spoken about the company perspective, we've spoken about the individual perspective, but the third is policy. So what do you think governments can do to encourage circular economy? And if there is any country as a benchmark that you could speak of, even that would be great.
Yeah. So for me, I know we have to drive that change as consumers. We have to demand that change. But I know government, that's when the big scale of this is going to change things in terms of circular economy. And I think the biggest and most important thing they can do is instilling structures, recycling bins where the products inside are actually recycled. Clothing, textile recycling companies, which doesn't exist here. And having means for people to be able to get rid of their stuff, that's actually then reused, recycled materials can be broken down. And in the UAE, it's done mostly privately. Like Enviroserve,
Yeah.
an example of that. So that would be the biggest thing the UAE government could do to help with this.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a great example in the European Union. They introduced, I guess a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, a policy where the companies producing electrical devices are obliged to treat and repair them if they're less than 10 years old, which is a great thing. I mean, I remember my parents purchasing the fridge with 10 years warranty. Now you get 2 years warranty for a huge fridge, right? I mean, and this is a game changer. There were some studies where, you know, like by extending the life cycle of this medium, you know, like range products that households are using, such as phones or fridges and washing machines and so on. By extending the life cycle, even optimization of the cost of material could go up to over 600 billion of euros, and this is a great thing to see, because the government sets the rules, and then the others, they have to follow, right, and they have to take a responsibility. And this is how we preserve the material. We are using less prime material, and then we are actually driving even the GDP by, you know, like reducing the cost of material and hiring more people to do this new task for the circular economy and so on. So it's the government has to be obviously a driver for you know, like doing the systemic change, but obviously government is not going to do that if there is no pressure from consumer and so on. But the UAE has started like introducing the circularity and circular economy in their agenda goals and so on. So I think the good things are coming. And what we do as a green footprint, we're trying to be, our key pillar is waste management. So we are teaming up with different waste management companies that are trusted in order to demonstrate where the waste is going. So very soon on the platform, we are working currently on that. We will be seeing where the waste is going. Some people are saying, oh, I saw the truck is picking up the same, you know, bins here and there. So it's like a cheating. But no, some companies are having the system where they are collecting it and then they are sorting it in their facilities. But this is where we want to kind of shed a light on what's happening really and educate consumers so that they understand like the value of the material, the value of recycling. This is where actually consumer is playing the key role as well.
Right.
So this is where I agree with Jen. Is like consumer is a key to make this happen. Likewise, so you know, like it cannot go without. But if government puts the you know, like sets the good ground and provides the infrastructure, it can go smoother, obviously. No.
Right. Right. So let's look at it as a consumer perspective, because that's where we can immediately make impact at an individual level, which has a much long term, it has a lot of impact, right? So at an individual consumer level, if I'm looking for sustainable products in different categories, which brands come to mind?
Yeah.
Let's first talk about buying new, then we'll go into other avenues.
So for clothing, buying new, I think Goshapia is an excellent example. And I think Green Footprint has a lot of great resources as well on that. No, actually, I'm so obsessed with secondhand. I don't think I can list off really good.
Okay. Anything that comes to your mind, Helena, for buying new?
I mean, what Jen just mentioned, like I had experience like my personal experience where I was like, okay, I want to buy a gift for a friend, you know, like, and I don't want to buy something that he has already, like, you know, Hermes is working a lot on sustainability, right? But again, like, I wanted something, you know, original, nice, that has sense.
Yeah.
And again, this friend, for instance, to buy a secondhand desk worker is like, oh, you know, like, there you can buy for yourself. I think this is the only kind of challenge you can probably respond to this, Jen. If you buy the gift for someone, you know, that could be seen a little bit weird, like you bought me secondhand pen. So I think this is the only limitation when it comes to secondhand. So there I was researching, and then I was like, bingo, I found Shopee, and I found a perfect like gift for a friend that is like that had all, that ticked all boxes, right? It has this luxury feeling. It's handmade. It doesn't have a toxic, you know, use and so on. So and the design was there. So it was a great place to find something different, something original, that is qualitative, that is, you know, like that sells the thing. But so I think we should really kind of start focusing on the local supply, and you know, encourage these small brands and
Right.
smaller businesses.
Right. No, absolutely. The focus has to be SME, focus has to be local, but we don't always have that luxury because in the UAE, unfortunately, let's face it, I mean, when we started Shift Eco, we wanted to see what's local out here and start scratching under the surface. You'll come across very few brands that actually manufacture locally. And that's an economic scenario, to be frank. So I understand the need for getting things from outside, but manufacturing locally is key. So supporting businesses that are focused on that is great. If we have to increase the life cycle of our products, where can we donate products? I know we can donate in Thrift for Good, but what about electronics? What about other aspects? Do you all have any recommendations for everyone on where we could could give our donate our products after we're done using them?
So clothing, accessories, bags, shoes, books, please think of us, guys. We donate 100% of our profits to children's charities around the world. We do not throw anything. We're zero waste. So you know your stuff is in good hands with us. Furniture, there's a lot of great furniture upcyclers out there, like Upcycle UAE, upcycle.ae. Soon we're going to be collaborating with Inara to take a small collection of furniture. So
yeah.
Electronics, if they're end of life, if they're broken and you want to recycle them instead of finding another home, Enviroserve are the leaders on that in the UAE. Toys, there's Spruce Step UAE, and always Dubizzle. I recommend Dubizzle. You'll get some money out of it as well, and you can find and sell everything on there.
Right. No, that's fair. Anything else you want to add to the list, Helena?
Well, there are some exciting news coming. I mean, when we speak electronics that you just mentioned, like it's also quite challenging to donate electronics because it has a lot of privacy linked to it, right? So so you don't really easily donate your phone or laptop or whatever because you keep thinking, oh, you know, there's some information there. But electronics are definitely important to think of not disposing properly in the general waste, because there are a lot of good source of materials that can be reused and so on. There are great coming news where the apps, there will be an app that is coming to collect at the doorstep and then recycle responsibly with you know, all the transparency that comes with it. I think this big news is coming over the next days and weeks. So first of all, it's going to be much easier for consumer to recycle this product and not to chase the you know, like common boxes in the different parks and stationaries and so on. So this is a great news. So yeah, I think it's very good point that you mentioned, and it goes perfectly with circular economy concept that we have to think about the materials and keep them in use and dispose them properly, and you know, like not much whatever you don't need, your neighbor might need it, you know. And this is where I think working as a community is quite important. And you know, whenever you have these chatting groups in the community, or even someone just disposing like something in front of the garbage bin because they don't need it anymore, I see it disappearing in like 30 minutes, you know. There is always someone finding, you know, like wanting it or whatever. So we should not really take for granted stuff and just dispose them like that and throw them away.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with Tim's point as well, that one thing is to recycle, the other thing is also to repair and increase the life cycle of the product. And I think that needs enough for push to from consumers' perspective. There are also a lot of recycling apps there currently, which help consumers not just recycle their products and point them to the direction of where they should go, but they also reward customers for recycling. I mean, I can just name a couple. One is the Loop, which will help guide you on where to go to recycle your plastic. But if you send them a picture of what you're recycling, you actually get points through which you can, you know, kind of redeem them against eco stores, and actually get rewarded for recycling. So there's a lot of interesting things happening in this entire circular economy space, but it lies in our hands as consumers to make conscious decisions. So since we're closer to the end of the conversation, what advice or quick recommendations would both of you give our viewers today to make this shift to a closed loop economy?
Yeah, so I would say it's the basics that I think everybody in this webinar knows. So reduce what you have, only buy the things you need, see if you can borrow, refuse plastic, refuse waste, reuse or repurpose your things. That's the best way to know it's repaired, is if you do it yourself, or you give it to a tailor to fix, or you repair it. Recycle, obviously, when you cannot, cut back on that waste to begin with. And I think much more, and going back to what we've said already, is demanding the change. You know, every choice you make, your dollar is your vote for the world you want to live in. So demand the change you want to see, buy the products that you think are good, tell your friends, be vocal, change, be the ripple of change in the community, so people start choosing better options. And so they're aware that things like fast fashion is destroying the world. You don't need to eat meat with every single meal. I mean, we just got to be those people that starts those conversations, that is informed and starts those conversations.
Absolutely.
I think Jen mentioned all the basics, right? So let me go back to theory now. Like, no, but it's like it's important. When we started the Green Footprint, we wanted to address the waste issues. We realized it's not going to work if you don't close the loop. So we have to think about the life cycle of the product and address like production and consumption issues. So this is where we are actually looking, you know, at these three components and bringing stakeholders together, so to drive this change. So the government recognizes the demand and the kind of good things in the society. So this is where they supported and founded this platform as they're seeing the opportunity and the values of it. On the other side, we keep working with the companies on improving their products, develop their products, help them to do this switch and optimize the resources. So this is where we collaborate with a lot of companies as well. But we are also calling for the consumer to log into platform, find information, and contribute by sharing the knowledge, because there are a lot of things popping up around. And the platform like this Green Footprint actually gives the chance to summarize, gather all the data, and make it visible for an entire big audience, right? So, and to ease like research options and the change options and the time and so on. So what we encourage people to do is like to log into the platform, create a listing whenever they find something interesting, some new products and so on, new place. And by doing so, we are creating transparency. We are creating awareness, and we are creating a hub for change. So in order to innovate in our society, we have to scale up, right? So we are looking for a lot of collaboration. Where we support the ethical businesses, and where this is the only way how we can drive real changes. Otherwise, obviously, it's going to like slow down. And if we are, and the reason also the green footprint is there always is to show that there is a scale. So there is the interest, there are the businesses and consumer interested in changing, like, so this is the.
No, thank you so much, Helena. Thanks, Helena and Jen. I know this topic is so large that a 1 hour doesn't do justice to circular economy, but I think the whole aim of the session today was to see what we as consumers can practically do to make better decisions, to encourage this circular economy loop. So thank you so much for your recommendations. From our side, thank you to all the attendees for attending this session. At ShiftEco, we're always wanting to do this collaboration with other organizations to kind of build this dialogue about sustainable living. We're also currently conducting a research study on single-use plastic to try and understand what the habits of people are in regard to single-use plastic, because given the pandemic, the use of single-use plastic has actually increased significantly. And we want to understand what the openness of people is to change. We've partnered with Nielsen to conduct this research study. We launched this research study last week, and we'd really want to invite all of you to also participate in the questionnaire. We will email you the questionnaire after the session, and we'd love your input. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you, Helena, as well as Jen. Stay tuned to ShiftEco for for other webinars. And thank you, Tim, for already completing our survey. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.